What's up everyone, Maki here with another topic video. GoG Galaxy, the GoG client for installing games that is completely optional, it also has like an in-game overlay and everything like that, is finally leaving beta into 1.2, which is going to add in a lot of cool features. Now the one I'm most excited for, and the one I'm mostly going to be talking about in this video, is the universal cloud save sync data, which is actually going to be a really cool feature where you can have cloud sync for all of your games. Now it does come with a lot of new features as well, so it's going to be having an improved overlay in games. It supposedly works in every single game, and so if you've ever had one of those compatibility problems with like Steam's overlay and stuff like that, supposedly it won't have that problem. I think there's going to be problems here and there because there just inevitably is when it comes to PC games specifically. But regardless, it actually sounds like something that's going to end up being really cool. Also, they're going to be having things in that sort of overlay as well. So you're going to be able to have screenshots, frame rate counters, and a bunch of other small types of features. It's going to be GoG Galaxy sort of syncing stuff. You're going to be able to sync with your friends. You're going to be able to use their new rewritten chat or whatever that means. So basically the chat is going to be rewritten so that it works both in-game and outside of game, depending on however you're using the overlay, which is actually really cool. They're adding in a bandwidth limiter. They're also adding in the new, some sort of rarity thing to the achievements. I didn't even know GoG had achievements, but apparently it does for some games. And so if you're looking for GoG achievement stuff, they have rarities so you can compare it to the rest of the community. They're also adding in a performance mode or whatever. So when you're playing a game, it doesn't botch down your performance, which is why I normally end up closing GoG whenever I'm playing a game. But I might not anymore if they're able to actually have this mode working. They're also adding in some new bandwidth limitation stuff, and everything, most importantly, is going to be able to be toggled on and off. And so basically, if you don't want one of these features, you can just completely turn it off, which I don't need another chat client and I don't need another overlay. And so basically I'll be turning that thing off. However, this cloud sync data thing, which they're calling universal cloud data sync, is actually really cool because they state it's going to work with everything. Basically, it's going to work with not only new games, but also old games. So everything is supposed to be updated so that it works with this whole new save data system. And basically, all these old games that are having, save data problems, because, like, let's say you get on a new machine. Like, I do that every once in a while, where I'll get a new machine, and then I'll be like, oh, well, I don't have my save data anymore. For example, the game in the background, Phantasy Star Universe, doesn't actually have cloud sync anywhere because you can't actually buy anything but a boxed copy. And so it's like, all right, well, what do I do now? You just lose your save data. That's really what it comes down to. You just don't get to have your save data unless you remember to back it up, which chances are you probably won't. And save data sync has actually been something that's been in a lot of other clients. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a minute just because it's going to be the main topic for the rest of this video, but I do want to talk about those other features. Now, do the other features have any sort of relevance? Because this seems like one of those things. Yes, they're adding in some new improved chat and everything like that, and I don't need another chat service. I already use Discord for pretty much everything, except for business stuff, which some people like to use Skype still, which boggles my mind, but regardless, I have Skype on my phone for that reason. And so, yeah, I don't need another chat client. And so I'm not going to be using this GoG one for that often of a reason, and I don't think enough people are going to be using the GoG Galaxy client, at least for now, to really make that relevant. And this is something that a lot of other clients have as well, and so most likely people are going to be using it in those clients, and stuff like Discord and stuff like that already has an overlay. Now, supposedly you're going to be able to use the chat while the overlay is going in-game. I don't know how that actually works because I don't have any friends on the GoG client that are online, so I can't actually test it out. By the way, if you want to test out the new features, supposedly you can connect to them with the new beta option and everything like that starting soonish, I guess. But regardless, and so I don't think that's actually going to get a lot of use, but there is the fact that you never know, because GoG could end up having a huge giant spur in community or usage. And so basically it could be like, let's say Steam, for example, nobody knew Steam's little client was going to end up kind of exploding, and then it ended up did. Now it's like the key platform, and a lot of people do use the Steam chat, which surprises me quite a bit. But regardless, I don't think that this is going to be something that GoG has to really push too hard in the future because not a lot of people are going to use it. Same thing with the overlay. I don't think the overlay is really going to be useful for a lot of people. I think people will use it for like older games. And so like, let's say they wanted to see like their frame rate counters and some of their hook-in programs aren't working and stuff like that. This new, overlay may actually work properly. And so that's one thing to look forward to. GoG is really good about getting compatibility with old games and stuff like that as well. Now let's talk about the main one, the universal cloud saves. So they've stated that this is going to work with literally everything. So not only new games that are releasing that are getting updated and everything like that, but also old ones that are no longer getting updated as well, which is actually a huge benefit because I'm the type of person that likes old classic RPGs. I really enjoy some good, old games and stuff like that. And currently I'm playing through the Prince of Persia games. I know that's not an RPG, but bear with me. And so the save feature actually sounds really cool. And there's been certain cases to where I've bought in a game And I'm like, all right, does it have cloud sync? And I've been really disappointed when I'm like on Steam or something like that and it doesn't have one. Like, for example, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle or whatever, well, Sonic Adventure 2, and then I had the Battle DLC, but that doesn't have cloud sync. And so every time I build a new machine, I always forget, and then it ends up just not carrying over because I forget to back it up. I forget to set it up on my own. I forget to do all this other types of stuff. But it seems like GOG is taking the route to where they're going to do more of the basic version of cloud sync to where, you know, that sounds like a bad thing, but it's not, trust me. And so basically the way Steam does it is you have this whole API thing and you have to use the API, and a lot of games such as like Final Fantasies and stuff like that, all the Final Fantasies use an external DLL. And basically when you trigger a save in game, it will try and save to the cloud while it saves to the local machine. And this does run into some technical problems, and this is why the simplicity of GOG is probably going to be a good thing. Those sort of APIs can actually have a lot of problems. It can actually cause people to have like lost data and stuff like that. For example, let's say Final Fantasy Lightning Returns. When it released, you couldn't actually play the game offline because whenever you tried to save, the game would crash, and it did have an autosave feature. So if you played offline, it was literally unsavable. And this is because it would try to save to the cloud and then save to the local machine. When it couldn't save to the cloud because you were offline, it would just crash the game, and that's because the API was not being used 100% properly. And so basically that causes issues. GOG seems like they're going to be taking the route to where they're not going to be able to do that. Also, by the way, that's been patched in the game. By the way, that was actually patched fairly quickly. It's just an example. By the way, it's been fixed. But regardless, it seems like GOG is probably, since they're going to be, you know, doing this whole old sort of games compatibility thing, they're probably going along the lines of, we're going to make it simple and basic to the point to where it's going to work with old games, which probably means they're going to be doing it like you could end up setting it up at home on your own. For example, on my old machine, I actually had Cloud Sync's data customized to work with my OneDrive. Now, they reduced my OneDrive thing, and my subscription ran out because why pay Microsoft for storage space? But regardless, what I did was I actually just had it so that there was an external script that whenever I ended up closing the game, it would just copy the save data over. Which sounds like something extremely simple to do, and that is a fairly easy thing to do if you have a little bit of technical knowledge. And so Cloud Save Sync isn't necessarily difficult to set up on the sort of technical side of the game. You can just have it be like, oh, well, game's closing, cool, there you go, it's done. So the client could easily see when you're in game and out of game because it already has the detection for your friends list and everything like that. And so it's like, yeah, you already have the functionality to already sort of do something like that. Now, obviously, they're going to probably try to do something a little bit more complex with that, with games that they can't, but I think that's how they're going to get that universal compatibility. And that's actually huge because it means that every game could have this compatibility, not just certain select titles like it is on Steam or Origin or Uplay. And it avoids a lot of issues. Like, for example, on, I think is it Origin that has Dead Space? I don't remember who publishes Dead Space, but regardless, whenever I re-download Dead Space, my saved data is always gone. It's always like, you have saved data, and then when it downloads the file, it's a 0 kilobyte file to where it's just like, yeah, this is a save file, by the way. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's literally an empty file. It has nothing in it. Open it in WordPad, it has one fucking icon. It's like, all right, cool. That's not a save file. And so it'll end up sort of getting around a lot of these problems that these sort of more advanced APIs have in order to kind of make compatibility with everything else. And I think that's going to be a really, really cool feature. And being able to have saved data for old games is just really, really cool in general. This is something that people have been requesting for a really, really long time because it's a huge selling point to things like Steam. A lot of people don't really think about it unless they're really into the gaming community, but like, yeah, playing an old game and then trying to come back to it on a new machine later, like let's say, you know, a year down the line or something like that, having your save data gone kind of sucks because sometimes you just want to go in and play it for a few minutes. You don't want to sit there and like replay through your 100-hour RPG and actually like regrind and relevel and everything like that. But you do want to kind of go back and experience it, and you can. Or maybe there's a game that you just had to like reinstall or something like that, and it's like, oh, well, now my save data is gone because I had to reinstall it. You know, stuff like that kind of sucks. And so I think everyone's had one of those experiences, at least one of those experiences to where they've been like, yeah, well, now my save data is gone and I just don't want to play anymore. And that's kind of unfortunate. It's one of the reasons why there's been a lot of like classic RPGs and stuff like that that I've been kind of avoiding playing through just because it's like, oh, well, I know I'm going to be upgrading at this point, or I know I'm planning on getting a new hard drive soon. It's like, oh yeah, next month I'm planning on getting a new SSD. And it's like, oh, well, what if I have to like reinstall games and stuff like that because I'm moving my OS? And what if that causes problems, which means all my save data, I'll have to back it up or I'll forget it. And so it's like, why play one now? This is going to alleviate that problem, and it's super, super nice. Now, obviously, this isn't going to cover games that aren't on the GOG client itself. And so basically, if you're buying games not on GOG, I don't think that you're going to be able to use this feature. That would be cool. That would be hella cool. But it looks like I'll have to use like manual scripts and everything like that if I ever want to set that up on my own. But this is a super cool feature that people have been requesting for a very long time, and I think that it's something that a lot of people are going to end up overlooking in the future and not knowing what it's like to lose all your save data for these because, yeah, GOG is just an awesome place. Now, before I end off this video, I do want to give one huge sort of warning because while GOG is great, especially for old games, like if you want to buy Beyond Good and Evil, that is literally the only place you should ever buy it on PC because all the other versions I've tried playing, Uplay and the box copy, they are broken. They do not work on modern hardware. They'll work on my laptop because my laptop's hella old. It uses old hardware. So it's like, oh yeah, sure, I can play on old hardware, but it has a lot of like vertex problems and things like that to where it just can't play on newer hardware. However, the GOG version gets updated and so that it will work on, you know, modern hardware. I think the Steam version also works. I don't know about the Beyond Good and Evil Steam version. I haven't tried that one, but I know the GOG version works. So it's like, yeah, if you want old games, GOG is freaking fantastic, and they're really good at kind of doing manual updates and things. Like they update old games that would never get updated, and so that it works on modern hardware. However, when it comes to modern titles, it can actually be the opposite. And so this is a real kicker to it, and this is one reason why I think that this cloud save data thing actually doesn't sell the client to me. Instead, it actually just looks really, really cool for old games, and that's why I'm not really talking about new games, because new games are going to be releasing on things like Steam and everything like that, which already has cloud save data kind of opportunities. Now, let's say a game doesn't have cloud sync on Steam, which would be ridiculous in this modern age, but let's say it doesn't. Then maybe GOG will be able to use their universal system, and then it will have cloud sync, which would actually be really, really cool and kind of hilarious. But yeah, regardless, GOG will end up selling modern games or modern-ish games, and some games won't actually get the updates that, like, let's say the Steam version or Origin version ended up getting, which is very, very disappointing. Now, I don't think Origin and Uplay is going to have any more sort of cross-platform, so that's not really relevant. But let's say, you know, you buy it on Steam or whatever, it'll probably end up getting more updates than the GOG version. We've seen a lot of problems with that because GOG only sells DRM-free products, and this is a topic for a whole nother video. I'm just giving it a warning since we're talking such a positive light to GOG. But, like, yeah, there's certain games that you do not want to buy on GOG just because it doesn't end up getting those updates. So do end up doing your research on the games that you end up looking at before end up purchasing them if they are a semi-modern title. For example, I bought Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1 because it was on sale on GOG. It was on sale on Steam as well, too. But I'm like, you know what? GOG isn't Steam, and I don't really like the idea of a monopoly, so I'd like to buy from other vendors when I can, and I wanted to try out the GOG client and everything like that. And so I ended up buying it. And it turns out that the game actually doesn't work on my modern system. When I upgraded my PC, it won't run on my system because there was updates on the Steam version that the GOG version never got that actually made it so it could run on modern hardware. And so basically, if I try to play the game through the GOG version, I don't get audio, which is super, super annoying. I believe I mentioned that in my review of it. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate. Also, this guy is kicking my butt. I think I'm in an area to where they're way too high of a level. But yeah, there's a fair warning when buying games on GOG, and that is a problem with just every platform as well, especially DRM-free platforms. Now, once again, that's a topic for another video. Maybe I'll do a video on that. But yeah, just be a little bit cautious. But regardless, I think this is super, super cool, especially for old games. I like my good old classic, you know, action RPGs, CRPGs, and all those types of things. And so being able to have cloud sync data for that is going to be super, super freaking awesome. I just wish that Sega games were on there because, you know, I was recently playing Sonic Heroes. I have to restart from scratch because obviously it's a, you know, physical game. Phantasy Star Universe, which I'm playing right now in the background, which, yeah, by the way, game in the background has been Phantasy Star Universe. I'm playing the Ambitions of a Luminous version, which you can only get a box copy now. The online doesn't work and everything like that, but I'd love to have cloud sync for this game as well, and just doesn't have it because it's an old game and everything like that, and so that kind of sucks, but yeah, and it won't work through GOG either because if you ask, you know, Sega, like, hey, where do you buy your old games? They say you don't. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. But regardless, this has been Michael with another topic video. We are talking about the GoG Galaxy Update 1.2, which is adding in a lot of cool features, most prominently the saved sync feature or whatever. Cloud save data. There we go. That's the words. I think it's really, really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it ends up going in the future. I could actually see this being a huge, huge benefit, especially to classic gamers, for people that are buying off of GOG and stuff like that, and I could see this end up being a good push for GOG's future. Anyways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. You can end up also checking out my other types of series. I do impressions reviews, which is reviews for video games, if you were wondering. We focus on mechanics and talk about them. The most recent one I did was Senran Kagura Estival Versus, which is a really, really fun action game with some fighting game elements and it is also really, really fan servicey. So a fair warning there, if you end up checking it out, it is a little bit fan servicey, and by a little bit, I mean a lot. But regardless, it is a really, really fun game, and I ended up enjoying it, so go ahead and check that one out. You can also end up checking out my Let's Play series, which nobody has ended up watching. I play a lot of niche games. We're playing through a Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, and we're playing it through an emulator, so if you're interested in that whole technical jargon, you can end up checking out that series as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to leave your comments on what you guys think of this feature. Will you end up using... Oh, well, I died. Well, I game overed. I have not actually game overed in this version for a while. What happens if I hit continue? Will I go back to the load screen? Oh yeah, I just completely got wrecked. I'm a level 4. That was a level 10 or something like that, or level 15. Yeah, I was in a place I shouldn't have been. Anyways, yeah, leave your comments below what you guys think of this. Will you end up using that chat client? Because, well, I personally don't use a lot of these extra chat clients. Like, I try to, you know, consolidate into one or two or something like that, you know, because I like to consolidate everything and make sure everything is everywhere. And my friends groups tend to sort of, I guess, migrate into one form and then everyone's there after that. And so I don't know, I'm not really a big market for that. And I'm not a very, I guess, outgoing social person anyways. I do go out and socialize, but not on the internet. And so, yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing. So I don't know, maybe it's a bigger market than I think it is. And the overlay system, I know some people, you end up using it. I think it's going to be like every other overlay to where some people use it and some people don't. But yeah, leave your comments on what you think of that and whether you'll be using it or not. And I'll end up checking it out when it ends up releasing officially and everything like that. This cloud sync feature and everything like that is going to be in beta. So I might do an overview video on how to set it up because it seems fairly basic, but I might end up doing a video on how to set up your own because that seems like a really interesting sort of system. And I'll end up doing it with like something like Google Drive, not OneDrive, because OneDrive is god awful. But well, you can do it with Google Drive or something like that. So make sure to subscribe for that video when it ends up coming out. I'll start working on that one because I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I really want to do that video because it's a really, really cool thing to set up. But anyways, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'm going to shoot a cannon in the face. Are those faces? I think they're faces. Pew!